sometimes it seems like parts of it are just torturous, just because it's for
Yeah,
spiritual growth. Okay.
I've definitely grown.
um. Anyway, so what I was saying with the trip thing, uh, I hadn't thought because I don't plan very much, so I hadn't thought about what was going to happen when I get in there about contacting people and calling and texting and all that without having AT&T charge me $1,000 a text or whatever they like doing. So I called I called AT&T and T and told them the situation. Then this woman's like, "Oh, you have like the oldest plan known to history as far as AT&T is concerned." And I was like, "Yes, I know I have the oldest plan, and I have that because it's that grandfathered in like unlimited data and all that other stuff."
Yes.
Um, but then she's like, "Well, you know, we can upgrade your plan, save you $20 a month, keep your unlimited text and everything, give you tethering, and have your Canada trip completely taken care of without adding like a specific special plan for it."
Right.
So that was unusual, and it was a good thing. And now I can make videos in the park and whatnot because I have tethering.
Wonderful. Huge life upgrade. That
Right.
is good.
Right, that was a good one. So what's up with Aurora lately?
I've been thinking about when we talked on another video that science fiction book that you had mentioned about, the people that are being subjected to like profound challenges and what was it called again? I'm just not remembering the title.
That
I
book
think
that book was the Dosadi experiment.
that's what it was. Began with the D. Okay, Dasani experiment.
Yeah.
Like I've been thinking about that because like you were mentioning, like the neighbors mowing their lawn at 8 a.m. It's like giving us good spiritual muscles and everything. I think a lot of the things that we're experiencing here in this realm of like duress where everything is really difficult, we're suffering a lot. I think in many ways it's developing personality characteristics that are not desirable, that are not what we're really supposed to be. Because okay, on a different conversation, someone that I'm working with in Australia asked me about, my origins and being a walk-in and what is the society like of, if I could remember it and what it's like there. I'm like, yeah, not only can I remember it, like it was a total culture shock when I came into this society
Mm-hmm.
because in the place that where I'm used to being, where I'm used to, interacting with people and being treated by, the values are very different. Like, no
Yeah.
offense to anyone around here, but like, this is a barbarian world. It's not a place where, like, if you are, you know, caring and accommodating of other people, you'll be rewarded. It's almost like it's the complete opposite. I'm just putting down my little drink.
Yeah.
Like, in this world, what's rewarded is, obscene behavior. If you create a product that poisons lots and lots of people, but you make billions of dollars, it's like, good job, your
Right.
stockholders are happy.
Yeah.
Or even in interpersonal business dealings, like let's say you're a real, like a business shark, and you screw somebody over, and then you get all the profits. People will be like, good job, your business acumen is fantastic. But in those society that I'm used to interacting with, everything that you've ever done and thought and said is literally written on like pages
Yeah.
of a book.
Mm-hmm.
So because that's what it's like when you start to become telepathic and perceptive on a higher dimensional level, you can see everything through time. So
Right.
there's no way to hide anything. It's not their way to be like, oh, I used to be like a bloodthirsty murderer, but now everything is different and now I'm fantastic. Like, you're looking at someone and you can see those pages of their book and they're murdering their victims. It's like, no, no, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So in
Right.
this world, there's like the comfort that people get of being hidden, their their supposed secret indiscretions being hidden from view, and that's why people might celebrate someone who does something that's just totally whatever on that's pathogenic. They would celebrate pathogenic behavior, and when you start to see everything, it's like there's no way to celebrate the end result, even if you do the right thing. So all of that back to the Dosadi experiment, where I think that what is going to need to happen or occur as we are transcending these levels of mundane reality. Like we've been here in this literally satanic society, and we've all developed coping mechanisms. That
Mm-hmm.
might be like, oh, how do I deal with my neighbor's painfully torturous lawn mowing at 8 a.m.? Or it could be worse, like having to deal with sexual assault or
Yeah.
whatever type of found violent abuse people have undergone here, or war trauma or anything like that. And it's like, I think that we need to go through a rectification area. Kind of like you wipe your feet before you come inside. Like you've been out doing muddy stuff, wipe your feet before you come inside. I think before we come inside, before we go into the realm of pure mind, like where we are literally creating reality with our mind and with our thoughts, we need to have some kind of a massive healing where all of the, like, I'm not an evil person anyway, and yet I've had to develop these coping mechanisms of, having shields and, being prepared for other people's aggressions and stuff like that. Like, I got my little dog, right, just sleeping on her dog bed. Whenever I go to give her a treat, she kind of like cowers back. I put it on the floor, she takes it, like a chew toy or something like that. I think it's because, she's a rescue. So whatever she was happening in her previous life, I think we used to taunt her and be like, oh, we'll give it to you, and then do something mean or grab her or something like that. So it takes a long time to get over that kind of emotional stuff. So I think we have to go through some kind of similar healing, rectification. Be told hey, you're in a different world now, and you exact all of those aggressive or feral tendencies. I mean, what do you know about that?
Yeah. And the example of the the dog cowering with the food, that's like, it's a sliding scale of abuse and trauma here. So that's like on the lower end. Maybe for her it's really traumatic, but we have everything. We have the rape victims, and then we have the mental torture victims, right, that are recovering from that stuff. We have the MK Ultra survivors, like everything, all the drug experiments, everything. It's all, everyone's either numbed out. It's like I said in the last one of my last videos. If you're here in the realm and you're looking at it at face value, your main two options are to either go insane or completely numb yourself. If you look beyond what's appearing in the five senses world, look into the spiritual world, then you'll simply see everything. Like, it's just obvious what's going on here, and it doesn't require any words. It's just like, I know, I see exactly, right?
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you there. And I think that people in this realm, I agree with that basic premise. Like, people either disassociate, they're just like too hellish, can't take it, or turn into like a fantasy realm. Some people kind of go into like a religious mania, where either on a Jesus Judeo-Christian level or on a Luciferian level, there's like some savior program, like something is gonna, come along and save us and fix us and everything like that. I think that there's this question in this world, people think like, where is God? Where it has God abandoned us? Where are the angels? Like, you could definitely see the devils. Where are the angels and all these different things? And I was reading some, I don't know, blog piece or whatever that someone was talking about. Not that I agree with their assertions, but they were saying, oh, humanity is not ready for contact and for disclosure. That humanity is so, somehow gross, icky, and disgusting or undeserving. That there's all of these wonderful, benevolent extraterrestrials, but they're like, no, I don't think I'll come and help you or visit you in any way because you're just not worthy. And that's all, I think, Stockholm syndrome or like victimhood, blaming and shaming type of thing. Because I see the negative personality characteristics that are exhibited in humanity, like violence and greed and abuse and, the different things. I don't even see those as basic human nature. And I know that a lot of people would say like, oh, that violence is part of what humans are, and that the animal nature. And I don't see that as a part of.
I don't either. We were having a conversation. I was talking with my dad yesterday, and about relationships, stuff like that, like personal relationships, marriages, that kind of thing, and just that idea. The idea that you ever have to be cruel, ever have to be mean, ever have to be rude, that's just bullshit. I can go for a year straight without saying a mean thing to anybody, and there's just like, it's like a meme or something that gets propagated in your mind, and then it rationalizes your reaction or something. It's not necessary.
I think you said the right word, rationalizes. It normalizes something that is not normal, and it's in everything from interpersonal, or like we're talking about relationship stuff, even foreign relations between countries. It's like, oh, I don't like you, so I will bomb your country. The idea, right? That's even considered as an acceptable solution. And I mean, I'm not talking about, like, you should be able to defend yourself. If someone is coming at you with a machete, you shouldn't let them just kill you or anything like that. But I think that the violence is an end result of the genetic degradation that humans have undergone. Just like, like some of those little tiny micro chihuahuas, they've been so inbred that they're just like constantly aggressive. They always
Yeah.
bark, they always nip. I mean, their teeth are tiny, they can really hurt you.
And they're tiny too, so they're gonna be sort of defensive, right?
That's it. And they're going to get you before you get them. So
Right.
I'll get your Achilles tendons. I'll take you down. I think that that's like from breeding in the wrong direction. That it's taken certain personality characteristics and it exacerbated them and made them overgrown. And so I think that humanity, like, we're the domesticated version of humans right now. We're like what a dog is to a wolf. If we were in our true wolfen form, we would have our completely telepathic, higher faculties activated. We'd be able to see through time. We'd be able to talk to far distant civilizations that not on the telephone. We're not. We don't have, or we'd be able to eat pure life. We wouldn't have to drink wonderful vegetable juice in the morning. We would just tune directly into the sun and not have to have photosynthesis as an intermediary. So I think some of these violent tendencies and even socially aberrant behaviors like domination and control, it's just like those little chihuahuas. It's an end result of selective inbreeding in the species, and that all of that needs to be helped, healed, and mitigated. It's not who we really are. Like, we're really actually loving and peaceful and caring. And when I see beautiful things, like when people either adopt animals or adopt other children, not their biological offspring, and they treat them beautifully, I mean, I see a lot of altruism that tells me, no, violence is not the norm. Altruism or real giving and love, that is the normal behavior. And all this other stuff is the reaction to being in a toxic environment. And even I think our cellular structure at this point has food, water, air polluted, and microwave technology like Wi-Fi and stuff like that everywhere. I think even our cells are not able to act in a normal, healthy way, but like metabolizing food and being healthy. Everything in our body has to be armored up in response to this toxic situation. So I think we need to have some kind of a detoxification party before we go into the world of pure imagination, because otherwise we're creating from that world of barky, tiny chihuahua-ness.
Right. There's also something we've battled with. I feel like it's coming around. The situation really is coming around. I mean, it's so hard to discern when changes are actually happening because you're in the flow, But if you just compare sort of the freedom that people have when they're speaking their minds and not getting afraid that somebody's going to come do something, it's changing. Like, the situation is changing. It's just changing slowly. Even the stuff like Lord of the Flies, like, you can put something out there that is a convincing story, a very convincing story, and you can carry that notion that's uploaded into your brain by Lord of the Flies, and you can think, well, if there was no government, everybody would kill each other, right? Because the story was well written. But that's not saying, all that's saying is that we create the thing. Like, you create the story, believe it. Like, if you believe that rape is great and somehow convince yourself it's great, then you're going to live that reality. Like, why?
I'm with you, because that Lord of the Flies book was at a certain point required reading in all of the standards.
Right.
That's like laying a foundation of expectation of what is human behavior. Our education system has everything to do with these expectations of reality, and then it's social engineering of how you get people to act in that. It's like rats in a cage fighting over one little piece of kibble, and that's. Our economy is set up in that way too. Instead of being like, hey, let's collaborate and everybody will be abundant, it's like, I fight against you to the death and then I'm the victor and I take all of the booty.
Well, it's just hilarious. It's funny because what the schools do, and religion does it, and they all piggyback on one another, right? The systems piggyback, but what they do is they take this malleable, fluidic reality that changes as you look at it, and they say, this is the static truth, and then they defend that, and then wars and bombs and all kinds of retarded shit happens, right? And then the realm tries to blow itself up, but there's just no reason for it.
Yeah. it does seem very irrational until we do that thing, like you said, look beyond the mere veneer of the mundane world and start to kind of like, if it's in a tapestry, kind of look behind the tapestry and you see all the way the threads are connected and there's these knots that tie together. So if we add in the extra variable of understanding that there are higher dimensional intelligences out there. Like, okay, where I walk my little dog at the dog park, there's kind of this guy that lives, a neighbor over there. We always see him, and so we always say hi. And I've had many conversations with him. And I had a conversation finally a couple of days ago where we're talking about I was telling him of extraterrestrials. He's like, "Oh yeah, I don't mind if you mention that, but a lot of people don't believe in that." And I'm like, "Oh my, like." The whole idea that there's still people on the planet who have to walk on eggshells who actually believe the only life that exists, or the only intelligent life that exists, is human life on the surface of Earth. That was, it's like, I had to rearrange my brain for a little while. I'd be like, okay, there's still people, it's like finding out there's still deep racism in the Deep South. It's like, oh my goodness, okay,
Right.
that's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to believe sometimes. But it all fits into the central narrative of domination and control and protection of bad systems, because the the notion that we're the only ones that exist in all of the universe and all of everything, it's just one tiny blue-green planet and there's nothing else. That what that does is it says, we, the ones who are telling you that that's the only thing that exists, you must listen to us. Please,
Yes.
by virtue of, no one else is going to stop us.
I'm dying. I'm like totally dying because I mean, and so like you know me, and I don't know if everyone who watches your videos know me, but I'm totally an extraterrestrial visitor. So I came out of the closet to that guy. I'm like, oh, I'm an extraterrestrial, and he kind of like made this face and stepped back, and I'm just like, okay, bye. We're gonna go for a walk now. Yeah, because also humans have on Earth this programmed idea from science fiction that extraterrestrials will come in a metal spaceship, that they will fly here through a literal vehicle, and that they wouldn't think, oh, an extraterrestrial could meld with a human container or be contained in a human container. So I think that's also one of the crucial things, not just for me to share my story, but for everyone to understand planetary invasion. Like when we look behind the tapestry and see what's actually happening behind the scenes, find out, oh, there's actually consciousness invaders that came into the human genetic code that implanted seeds of violence, that implanted tendencies in socialization, in the way we set up our human, quote unquote, human society. It doesn't serve humanity. None of our wars serve humanity. It's totally illogical. Why do we do this? So everyone just says, oh, yeah, it's illogical. It's because humans are stupid and violent. It's like, no. There is a logic to this. We have to add in another character to the play.
Right.
Another character is this, we could call it demonic, but that's very biblical. And so I usually stay away from that language. But it's like a higher dimensional, malevolent intelligence that's been afflicting humanity for all of human history.
Yeah. It doesn't, none of it makes any sense if you just look at it, and even if you just look at it with intelligence and peer deeper, it still doesn't make sense. Like, you have to go deep, and then you find and understand the vast complexity of these consciousness replication systems, these high piggybackers, the looshing, all of that stuff. It's not easy to just say, oh, okay, this is what's happened, the world's been invaded, and humans really aren't responsible for any of it. Truly, it's not easy to come to that understanding. But you do come to that understanding because there isn't another, to me at least, rational explanation why there'd be so much illogical behavior and just violence, like pointless violence,
Yeah. And on the issue of taking responsibility, I think that's a huge philosophical question. Like if you say, okay, your DNA is like an antenna or like a vibrating musical instrument, and you emit music, but you also receive music and consciousness from other beings. And so it's my assertion that is how this invasion happens. So you can be, I'm a positive, person inside of this container, and you could have a negative or malevolent presence that comes into the human body and creates negative social behavior and repercussions, and all the whatever horrible music that is not supposed to actually play on this planet.
Right.
And I think that, so first of all, I wish everyone got those sunglasses from the movie They Live, and they could actually put them on and see who's infested, because we're living in a society that is
heavily invested. I mean, so I'm Milwaukee, and I came here in 2001. So, and you know me, I just say this for your audience.
Yeah.
So, I'm always like giving people the benefit of the doubt. Even when I lived in Northern California, I was buying something from a store. This girl had like, a neck tattoo and, all sorts of piercings and whatever. But I'm still like, I meet everyone with a smile. I'm like, we can still like talk and be cool or whatever. And I kind of realized after a little while, like, she hates my guts. Like, she's potentially charging me the wrong price because she doesn't like me. But I'm like, hey, I'm willing to look beyond the neck tattoos. I think at a certain point, you put on the glasses and you're like, oh, that's a demon. Like, that person was literally lying to me and trying to steal from me and charge me the wrong price because they're a demon. Like, you just have to admit to it at a certain point. So there's this rational skepticism that people are protecting themselves with.
Yeah.
They're like, blah, blah leader, blah, blah religious leader. They couldn't possibly be infested with some demonic consciousness. Oh, actually, yes, they could. And now we're seeing things that give us evidence of that. Like whatever all the rapist priests and the church hierarchy that intentionally turns a blind eye. You can't just say that that's normalized human behavior. There is something else pulling the strings, making that happen, and it's not.
Even with previous presidents that weren't so over the top, like at least like the Bush before them, that was just like utter nonsense. But earlier on, like the Reagan days, or the back when the guys in there seemed to be somewhat human, they were saying there is a presence here. There is a very dangerous, ominous presence here, and we don't really know exactly what it is, but it's undeniable. Like in their memoirs, like they understood that, and even with their understanding of that, they still couldn't like save humanity, so to speak, obviously, because we're not saved yet. I mean, there's still dumb shit going on, but the knowledge is just simply there, and you can't just tell the public about it because you're gonna have chaos.
So I think we're now at the point where we can speak about it openly. That it used to be, if we mentioned these things, we would be hated and reviled and pushed to the fringes and painted with like the paintbrush of insanity. Like, you are a crazy fringe dweller. That's not true. And now there's enough social consensus. If you say something like this, it's like, oh, you're not going to be carted off to the mental hospital.
Right.
And there are enough people that can confirm, like, yeah, these types of things really are going on. Just like accusations of ritual abuse or systemic pedophilia. When that was happening in the 1980s, it was just labeled as a satanic panic. Oh, bosom clutching Christians are making things up and thinking, just implanted memories. It's all being made up. It's hysteria. It's manufactured hysteria. And then it's like, no, actually, it was a very real thing that was not socially recognized, just like when many people in their families are a victim of abuse and they say, hey, grandpa did blah, blah, blah. They're like, what? No, grandpa would never do that. I stick my fingers in my ears and I punish you. Now there are enough people that are awake to this information that if information comes out like, oh, there's 300 priests in a diocese that are making pornography in the actual church using whips like that, that's like, oh, yeah, that actually rings as true. We're believing that.
Right.
Enough momentum on that understanding.
Right. And in addition, and it's good that, this stuff is finally allowed to be in the public domain, because even on social media, it's not as censored anymore as it was. It's just not. Like, even on my social media, I'm not censored as much. There's still some stuff going on, but for the most part, and the reason being for me, I think, is because the level of depravity, and as far as like the alien invasion thing, it just got itself to the culmination point where it was either everyone was going to become a zombie and there wouldn't be any consciousness left, or something has to happen, something has to break a little bit, right? So that's why, to me, the realm has kind of been segmented into those that are kind of being quarantined, like what we call NPCs, for whatever reason, and then the others that are kind of awake are being allowed to discuss and inform one another and support each other, and that's kind of how it's playing out. And the rest of the population that's asleep or whatever, that's just going to play out how it has to. Like, there's nothing we can really do about that.
Yes, and I'm thinking maybe those NPCs or non-player characters, their consciousness is focused on a different timeline. So if we're riding on this road over here, they might be riding on this road over here. So we've just got like a very peripheral echo of who they really are as a person. They're not even really inhabiting this body. They're in a different dream. And so I have friends that, whatever I knew from years ago, and I lived on the East Coast, and it feels to me not just that they're distant geographically, because we can talk on the computer and on the phone and everything like that. I feel like I'm on this timeline over here and they're on this timeline over here. Like there's a gulf of time that is separating us, and people have different destinations in terms of what timeline we're experiencing right now. So some people are ready for the total, I want to say world of pure imagination, like Willy Wonka. Like we open up into a magical rainbow colored fantasy land, and we can whatever, drink teacups full of nectar and eat the teacup, like that. It can be that magical, but not everybody's ready for the totally magical reality.
Right.
Some people are still mired in rational skepticism or in their own sense of self-doubt in themselves as a person. Like if you really believe in yourself, then you're like, I don't need a savior, I don't need an external God to come along and tell me what to do. I am, the embodiment of the divine, but not in an ego way. You know what I'm talking about? Like in a divine, natural life type of way. And some people are ready to do that, and they're ready to take total responsibility. That's the track we were on. Like if you've got some infestation, like, oh, it ain't my fault. It's my mom and dad's fault. It's satanic abuse fault. It's a demon occupying my body fault. And they all want to be like, oh, it ain't my fault. Let me into heaven. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't think you belong in heaven because I think you have serious integrity issues. So
yeah,
I just give a free pass to people because they have a deathbed confession and all of a sudden they find religion and they decide to convert or whatever. It's like you have a whole backlog of evil issues that you've done, evil songs that you've written, and now you've got to do something about what you actually did in the world.
Right. A lot of people get, people that have gone through lots of the trauma and stuff like that, if they haven't found some sort of centering or some sort of inner peace, then they get wedded to that narrative, and that is literally their identity. So if you try to tell them, hey, like, you can heal and just, you can dump all of it, like every fraction of it, dump it, and you're going to be like light and free and pure. And they're going to feel this like, oh my God, he's telling me that my story didn't matter anymore, and I don't know, I can't do that. Like some people are just stuck to it.
Thank you so much for that point. That is excellent. The barrier to healing for many people is that they base their entire identity on the wound or the scar that they have from their abuse. And I see that a lot in people who come forward with stories of being in a secret space program, being a super soldier, or having any extraordinary level of trauma and abuse, like, being ritually abused or sacrificed or whatever. If you base your sense of self and specialness on all of those things that have happened to you, then what happens if you actually get healed? It's like, who are you if you're not that person that was horribly traumatized?
Right.
If you're a healthy person. So it means a complete redefinition of who you are, like who your context and everything. So yeah, you have to be willing to let go of all of that. That's what we can do in like the vestibule before we get to freedom. We can like wipe our feet and be like, oh, let go of all of the identity that's based in trauma.
And letting go of the trauma does not mean that it's wiped as if it never existed. You retain the memory that you went through that experience, but you're not using it as current identity anymore. It's more like it's there to inform you how to move through your new present moment, because now you know that same shit isn't going to be able to happen because you have defenses for it now.
Absolutely excellent point. So it's like if you get in a car accident and you hurt your leg, and then you might walk with a cane or have a limp for many years, but at a certain point you heal and you transcend, but you don't have the cane or the limp. And then it's like you're no longer constantly referring to that incident that happened. And
Right.
I even assert that, these demonic beings, they don't really have their own bodies. They don't really have their own identities. And I think that's why they want to come into human bodies, like, and influence humans who are alive in order to kind of prove their existence. To be like, see, I do exist. I made that guy crush his car, or I made that guy shoot with heroin. I did something in the world. It's like an infantile ego that wants to be like, well, I exist. I prove that I exist. Because if you're really an eternal being, you don't have anything to prove. Like,
Right.
if you really have that inner realization that you are a divine being, and I keep on like being really clear, like, I don't mean ego, I mean you, the real you, then you don't have anything to prove. You're not worried about like, will my legacy live on? How will people remember me? All the things that people are worried about. Like the ancient Egyptians were worried if they didn't have their hieroglyphics, perfectly etched in the wall, that their memory would be erased and they would be erased from, the world of time. It's like, no, like the consciousness exists independent of what other people think of you, or whether they think of you, or whether you are etched in a hieroglyphic. Like, you exist. So it's only the really insecure ego that knows that it's temporary. That's like, I have to somehow prove that I exist. And I think Hollywood is a lot of that now too. Because they think, oh, I can be so Hollywood stars think, I will be immortalized on celluloid, and then everyone will know that I existed even after I no longer have my body and I'm dead.
Right.
Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's really silly. It's kind of hard for me to grasp that whole thing, because even if the narrative that is presented, that you live and die once, you have one body, and then you go to the sorting room, even the people that believe in that, I can't wrap my mind around why you'd want to leave a legacy if you weren't going to really be around anymore for the most part. Are you in heaven looking back on your earth experience and taking snapshots of that and telling everyone in heaven look what I did on earth? Is that even happening? Or I don't know what the point is.
Right, there would be some ego room in heaven where watch my home videos from when I was alive. Here's where I rescued a cat in a tree. Here's where I got a Medal of Honor or something like that. Because I don't think that ego is what goes to heaven. So I don't think that when we're in that exalted state, I don't think that we're having to do the whole self-aggrandizement to be I'm so great, I did all this stuff. I think that's what we do now, because there's this program running inside that says that we're somehow inadequate. And so we always are motivated to do this thing, to prove that we're good enough, to prove that we're allowed to exist. And it's I try to encourage and remind everyone to remember, you're a divine being, you don't have anything to prove, you don't have to care about what other people think of you. It's like when you're an artist and you're just no, I just paint my effing paintings, and I don't care if you like them or you don't like them. You do it because it's what you do. You are your true self because it's who you are, not because society pats you on the head and says, oh, you are good, keep on doing that.
Yeah, you have to find that. I don't know. I think once you accept the idea of eternity, or that things don't culminate really, it just flows on, then I don't know. Then you're just free. Who knows what you do? Who cares? I don't even care what I do. It meanders along and it does its thing, and other people see it and they're like, oh, I can join in or whatever or not, and you can make and create. But as far as trying to hold I don't know, a leaf that's going down the river and grab onto the leaf and say better save this leaf. It's no, there's 1,000 billion other leaves. Why do you care about that particular one?
The freedom that you're describing, I think, is our true mental state. And coming out of this realm of being so limited and constrained and traumatized, I think that we need to do some muscle stretching and reposturing and getting ready to be in that flow, to be in that level of freedom. So I'm not trying to say to everyone you're naughty, you're not ready. No, not at all. I'm more saying imagine if you lived your whole life in some cramped little cage, and then you get a rescued farm animal, and then you get to your rescue place, and there's a big beautiful green field, but you have to kind of learn to stretch your wings and learn to release your posture, and what's it like to run around on grass. We need to have that experience.
Well, they're scared to come out of the cage. That's happened with animals that have been locked up in the dark for years and years. They're scared to come out. It's the same thing with the people. You have to imagine, even if the cage doors weren't open, you have to imagine the scenario where, what would it be like if the cage doors did finally open and you'd been in the dark forever? What would it feel like? Would you just run out and woohoo? No, you'd be scared, and you'd be very cautious, and you'd be pretty much expecting that there was a hammer going to fall on your head the second you walked out. And that has to be respected, that people have gone through so much shit. They have to be able to do it their own way.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I think that there's also the question of caged animals who are concerned about food. If you lived your whole life in a cage and they give you your little hamster treats in your little treat dispenser, and then you leave the cage, you're but wait, my kibble. Where shall I get my kibble from? You've never even eaten natural food like carrots or grass or whatever as a
Right.
little hamster running around in the grass. So we as humans, we're used to shopping in the grocery store. We're used to eating, domesticated plants and animals. We're not used to eating nothing but pure light. And I think people in this caged level of reality might even think that, like, what? Like, you don't get to eat chocolate, you just get to eat light. Like, this does not sound very appetizing. Like,
Right.
what's on the menu today? Photons. Like, that doesn't sound so appealing. But what if when you're eating light, it gives you even more of a nourishment and a sensation of goodness? What if it's like the feeling of the best cake you've ever eaten in the entire world, and it's just being directly transmitted into your sensory experience without the intervening taste buds and fermentation in your tummy and no pooping also.
Yeah.
So it's a direct, and that I understand that as being a way of abrogating the necessity of death, because then you don't have to kill anything to eat and live well. You don't have to kill an avocado to eat it for breakfast. You don't have to kill eggs. You don't have to kill bacon. You can eat sensations from the sun without having to have the actual organisms.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's hard to put in words sometimes, but like you have to appreciate systems, like for instance the earth itself.
Yeah.
Physicality of nature and grass and wind and trees, like you have to appreciate how they are providing the framework for you to walk around and play, and that you should respect that. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Earth or whether you're in your dimension, wherever you came from, abstracting with other colors and things. It doesn't matter. Like you must appreciate the framework that supports your movements.
That's one of the things that I love about being here in a human body in this sensory experience. So things that other people might take somewhat for granted or whatever. Like, I love to walk my little dog in the park, and like you look at the way, like, it's beautiful where you are, your little backdrop right now. The sun is filtering through the trees, like all of that. There are levels of profound artistry in the creation of reality, in the way that colors are put together, that sounds are put together, and that's even just in a regular urban park. That's not even some unspoiled like virgin forest somewhere. Like, there's an incredible amount of beauty and sophistication in the way that microbes relate to plants, plants relate to animals, and we as humans relate to all these different systems. I'm absolutely agreeing with you. And it's like only the unconscious zombified people deny or overlook these miracles of life, and they're just like, no, I need to drive to my work and drink my coffee and be focused on my computer screen.
Right.
It's a very limited slice of reality.
Yeah, and the nature, that's why I gravitate to it so much, because they're not talking so much. Like, the birds aren't sitting there like trying to convince me of something. It's like, but they're definitely contributing to me, right? There's a bird right like 10 feet away, and it doesn't care that I'm sitting here making a video, like the bird is probably like, oh, something's happening over there, bounce off of that a little bit, like whatever. But it's that aspect of not clutching. Like, that to me is truly the essence of how beings ought to be, is not clutching. And that contains within it respect what somebody else is, how they are, what kind of fears they have going on, if they have no fear, whatever. You have to respect them, otherwise that whole cycle gets started again.
Yes, absolutely. These demonic occupiers of the interstices, or whatever words, vocabulary words to describe them, they hate wildlife. Like that beautiful bird that's in the park with you, and the tree behind you, and all of the other, it's uncontrolled consciousness. Like, it's not domesticated. A bird is like, I'm going to think my bird thoughts. I'm going to fly around eating whatever I want and pooping wherever I want. And I'm not controlled. It's not a domesticated animal.
Right.
And it does seem that there is a war that is being waged against wild, undomesticated nature, because it maintains that frequency of freedom. Like,
Right.
We should flow from moment to moment in the same way that a wild, undomesticated animal does. They don't do the same thing every day. They have variety in their schedule, and they're self-directed. And we should do the same thing. We should be like, oh, I feel like doing this. Now I feel like painting a painting. Now I feel like going for a walk. Not have some boss or some government or some external structure that tells us, now it is time to do this, and you better do this for your money, because money is like, it's like the treat. I want to spell it out, TREAT, because I'm so used to spelling it. It's how you get the reward for doing good behavior as a domesticated human.
Pavlov's dogs, right?
we are completely Pavlov. And even me, as I'm a newcomer to this world, I learned very quickly, like, you want food, you get money. You want to eat, you better get some money, because that is what, so it's like a survival mechanism. So even though I'm not a cutthroat capitalist or anything like that, I still have had to mitigate my behavior. If I didn't have to worry about food, purchasing my food in a grocery store and having money and participating in the economy on that level, I'd just be like, I'm just give stuff away. I'd be like, here, I made this painting, give it away, put it in the right spot.
Yeah, right.
Make a dress, give it to someone. I wouldn't have to be concerned. I wouldn't have to be concerned if someone pays me tuition on my PayPal or anything like that. And I'm already only loosely concerned about how many people pay me tuition.
Yeah. So well, it takes it. Sorry for interrupting, but it takes the magic out of the reciprocity thing. That's what the money system does. It breaks it down into numbers, and then it allows people to steal off of the energy, and it also removes the magic from it.
Yes. In a true society of freedom, we would be rewarded by the quality of our thoughts that we send out to others. So it's like, if you are thinking really benevolent, caring thoughts, or supportive of other people, you would be absolutely given all of the resources to continue to give those emanations. And I feel like where I live is a pretty, like a very good cause and effect place. Like, there are some power spots, like some places where it's like, it's people who send out things back to
you. They're airplaning me.
God, you got an airfield strafing you there. I was in my local park here in Ojai, and I was seeing one of the park workers was cleaning something up, and he was really busy. I didn't have a chance to verbally say this to him, but I thought in my mind, like, oh, thank you so much for cleaning up the park and keeping it nice and spiffy for us. And as soon as I thought that thought, I looked down and I found this little, like, semi-precious gem, on the pathway. And I was like, wow, that's absolutely a confirmation from the cosmos that sending out goodness to others means you receive goodness too. But the problem is the system is not consistent. We don't always get that critical reward for our good thought behavior in this society. And there's a lot of people that send out horrible thought energy. Like, oh my God, you want examples of horrible thought energy? Just go to Twitter. You will find people who spew venom. And they're even famous people, and they get paid for this. I'm like, oh my God, it's literally the toilet of humanity.
That's what Trump gets paid for, right? Spewing venom.
Yeah. And I would even say what's going on Twitter is like a type of Harry Potter-esque, shooting, I shoot my words at you, I shoot my words back. Like, it's very, it feels arcane. It feels like there's something beyond mere conversation and information sharing there. It feels like people are shooting each other with different energy weapons, words, thought. And so, I've had to, like, put on my armor, like, okay, I'm going to go on Twitter now. Get shielded up. Get ready for this. Right. Read what's going on. And then I try not to, like, get pulled into the melee. I'm like, no, don't get into it. Don't get into it. It's not. Yeah. So, and someone said that to me, actually. Because they know me. I'm mostly an artist, and I'm supposed to focus on whatever spiritual or esoteric stuff. And they're like, well, why do you post these political things that are getting down into the mud? And I'm like, I'm not down in the mud, but I can't deny that these things are happening. You can't deny sex abuse. You can't deny that political corruption is ongoing, and that the view that we're given by the media, corporate media, and social media is a very distorted view. And I'm really realizing now, like, how do I really know what public opinion is? Well, I read things on Twitter or I read things on Facebook, but you can still be given a very limited, algorithm-controlled slice of reality. That's not what is actually going on in the world. So I like to believe that there are a lot of people that are benevolent, doing the spiritual work, sending out thoughtful, good thoughtful kind feelings and stuff like that. And for the most part, they're not posting on Twitter. Like, they're busy, having their relationships and being nice people, and they're not spewing venom on a computer.
Yeah. This is not really along with the the thread of the conversation, but I want to see if you can explain to me what Twitter actually is, because I kind of understand the other social media. Like, I understand what Instagram is, I understand Facebook, I understand, the picture one, whatever that one is.
Right.
Pinterest. I do not understand how Twitter, like, algorithms its postings versus the responses. I can't wrap my mind around that.
So okay, so I think I might need more information about your question, or what doesn't make sense, because I see Twitter literally as, used to have that 140 limitation of characters that you're allowed
Right.
to say. How can you put your thought information into exactly the right words and kind of shoot it at someone else, not just in order to have them understand your idea, but in order to kind of like destabilize their mind in some way? It's like, oh, you think that and you think you know this? Well, I'm going to teach you this instead. And then it goes, like, I
Ah,
don't know what's real.
okay. Yeah, I don't know if I can understand her. I get the 140 characters and how, you're kind of like loading up this little word bomb thing or something and shooting it.
Word bomb is good.
But as far as like how many people it reaches or how many people are able to respond, like I'll see super popular people make a tweet or something with lots of followers and it looks like only a few people are responding or only a few people are seeing it or something. Like I'm not understanding the exposure ratio that's happening there.
So maybe the disconnect is that it's in the ideal, not distorted expression of Twitter. It's supposed to be that the more followers you have, the greater voice you have, and the more retweets you have, the greater reach you have. Like you're spreading more ideas through the human mycelial network. However, the Twitter owner seems to be very limiting in his who he allows to have a voice. So there's imbalance in who gets a verified blue check mark, who has followers. Like sometimes followers are removed, or there's shadow banning, which is where you don't actually show up in search algorithms, or you make a comment but no one else sees it.
I made a video on shadow banning like
Yes.
a year ago.
I think that's a big part of giving people a limited view of reality via social media. Because if your voice isn't really going out there for whatever reason, like on YouTube, if it is an intentional suppression of views, or if it's you're not showing up in recommended videos, or whatever it is, then it means that other people don't know, oh, people are thinking these thoughts. Because once you find out someone else is doing the same thing that you're doing, it gives you a lot more social power. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, so you drink green juice. And then you like, I'm the only person in the world who drinks this juice. I must be the biggest weirdo. I'm a total fringe dweller. And then when you find someone else and it's like, oh, I know 5 people who drink green juice. And you're like, I'm not alone. This is actually a normal thing to do. And then you completely recalibrate. Yeah. And that's like, it used to be the most weird thing in the world to talk about the deep state. That was just like maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. If you talked about the deep state, you were a tinfoil hat, fringe dweller, weirdo, who would be shunned at Thanksgiving dinner.
Conspiracy theory, flat earthist.
Completely. Now, I hear this term bandied about on regular corporate media. There's articles written about it. It's like all of a sudden everybody talks about the deep state like it's the normalest thing in the world. Yeah. So that's part of breaking through these layers of social constraint where people know something inside, but they don't allow themselves to express it for fear of rejection or for fear of being, ostracized or, literally incarcerated in some way. If someone's going to be like, you said this on the computer, well, we're coming to get you now. Like we're gonna search your house for whatever reason we think you're dangerous.
Yeah. It's coming around though. I mean, just the freedoms is coming. It's just slow,
I think what we're experiencing in that slow creep or whatever, movement towards freedom. I think we're getting all the things that we need in the recipe for healing. Like in my experience personally, it has been healing to me to see that now other people recognize and acknowledge the deep state. I don't feel insane. I'm like, I have other people here that know the same thing as me. Or being able to speak about demonic interference in our society, or ritual sacrifice, or like inhabitation. Like if something's inhabiting you, that's not really you. Lots of people talk about this now. So I think that was an important thing. Not that this world is just for me, but it's like, I feel better knowing that more people know about that. And how amazing would it be if the floodgates completely opened? If all of this information completely came out about the profound corruption of international government, then it would be not just something that is a possibility, but that is formally, overtly acknowledged. Like now the stuff of the Catholic Church is formally, overtly acknowledged. Mm-hmm. So not just presumptions. There's actual evidence there. So what if all of this evidence really came out? Like, oh yeah, blah blah person really was selling favors. Blah blah person really was treasonously selling state secrets. Like all of this, that actually was really happening. I think that is part of the releasing the burden of the lies that has been what has kept humanity stuck in lower levels of perception, because they're not seeing, humanity has not seen everything that's going on. And when you open the floodgates, it's like, oh yeah, this is what's actually really going on.
Yeah, I feel like part of our role as sort of holding space for that to be able to happen is to not attach any like being nonchalant if somebody says, oh, you know, baby sacrifices were happening, being neutral about it, being, yes, they were happening and this is why and such and so, and not loading it, so to speak, emotionally loading it, so that person can come out of that dark cave of unknowledge into the sort of light that you can share with them, and they're not feeling manipulated in their coming out of that.
Yeah, it has to be something that people willingly expose themselves to. And it's like I'm tangentially like swinging the conversation in a little bit of a different direction. You know, people are really interested in free energy. And I think it's a worthy exploration. And I like the idea that it's a crowd-sourced. It's not like there's one large hadron collider with a bunch of white-hooded scientists, you know, gathered around with their clipboards, you know, observing things, and then that information trickles down to the rest of humanity. People are doing their own individual experiments in their little garages with their little coils and stuff like that. I think that aspect of it is very good. But what I want to see humanity moving beyond is the idea of, we don't just need to have cheaper electricity. A lot of people think like that is the goal. Like our world would be so much better, and we'll have less poverty and less pollution, and we'll have a beneficial economy if I can just make electrons flow through my light bulb for 1 cent a year, and then everybody could live a good life and everything like that. But I think that the technology or electromagnetic phenomena that are being explored in these zero-point energy machines, I think it's actually got the potential for something way more fun and interesting, which is like interdimensional travel in non-physical vehicles. So that you don't have to build a clank metal spaceship to go somewhere else with your mind. That it's the harnessing of these mysterious forces that can make your electrons flow through a wire and get light bulbs. You can light an LED. You can do much more fun and interesting things than just light an LED. So let us not don't set up the shiny trinkets. Oh, and I hear you got a siren in the background too. Let's not, as humans, be like, be like a naive society, with conquerors coming along and be like, here, I will give you glass beads, that's real treasure, in exchange for rights to your land and your water. Like, let's not accept shiny trinkets in exchange for our true birthright.
Yeah,
when we're really activated on these higher dimensional levels, we can do things that would be considered magic beyond any kind of Harry Potter kind of stuff.
There's no reason to take deals, like, whatsoever. No technology, none of it. Like, none of the tools, none of the none of the thought systems, none of the anything that somebody tries to give at you, need you take. None of it. Remember that. If you forget everything else, remember that. Like, you're free. Like, you don't. If somebody's being a jerk and they're trying to punch you or hurt you physically or whatever, there are laws that will handle that situation, and it will be fair in that sense. But if someone's trying to pretend like they're offering something under the guise of something else, just say no. You don't need it.
I'm totally in agreement with you, because also humans need to recognize the value of our own real estate. Like, you have a physical body that is incredibly valuable. Even, I know a lot of humans don't like their body. They're like, oh, I have freckles. I don't like my freckles. My hair is the wrong color. Whatever it is, it's usually some superficial thing. Sometimes it's based in disease. Like, no one likes to be uncomfortable in disease. But the point is, when you have a physical body, you have real estate in the physical reality. Like, you own the cells of your body. You own these molecules. And they're like the conquistadors in this story would be non-physical beings that are beings of, whatever, higher dimensional or interdimensional non-physical existence. And they're like, oh, your bodies are worthless. Here, I'll give you some shiny trinkets in exchange for your body. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, well, my body has freckles and stretch marks, so okay, I'll give it to you. It's like, no, your body is incredibly valuable, so never get rid of it, give it away for cheap. Don't sell access to it.
Yeah.
And that's like the issue of prostitution. Like in this world, people sell access to their most intimate layers of being, and that's considered normal. So then it's just a hop, skip, and a jump. And be like, sure, come occupy my mind, live through my body, make my mouth flapping, moving mouth parts move. And then, you know, whatever, you'll give me something like a shiny trinket in exchange. So yeah, don't make any kind of agreements with interdimensional beings that want to have your body.
Yeah. And just take your own individual power. Like, every single individual that has a consciousness is sovereign. Like, that word I know is corrupted and tainted, but you are autonomous. There is no ruler over you. There isn't even a God ruling over you. There is a divinity that knows and understands and handles everything, but there's nothing forcing you to do anything. And it's benevolent. It's not like the idea of Yaldabaoth and his fallen creation and all that. That doesn't even have to be this either. Like, it doesn't matter where you are, you can always transmute the situation.
Yeah, and if we look at everything as a thought creation, so just in the same way, if you take everybody who's in public school, you plant the seed of Lord of the Flies in their mind, and then as they grow up, they expect that level of expression in society and violence and things like that. If you plant a seed in the collective mind of humanity with a myth or a religious myth or something like that, then when humanity enters into that world of pure imagination, each person is creating from that presumption. And we might not know it, even if you're not a religious person, we're in a Judeo-Christian world that is heavily influenced by the Bible and the story of the crucifixion. Even if you're not a worshiper, or you're like, that's just crazy stuff for other people that are weird, it's a seed that is inside of you. And so then when you go into this world of pure imagination, you begin to create with that as a basic premise. So It's part of, like, you know, cleaning up, wiping the mud off of your shoes before you enter. The mud of the shoes in this case is nothing bad, but it's cultural preconceptions. The idea of cosmogenesis, where do we come from, who created us, what made us happen, the story of good and evil and how that is completely created in the world. I was thinking about the story of good and evil and how that relates to human perception of extraterrestrials. That everybody wants to divide it up into these two camps. Like, there's good angel extraterrestrials and then evil demon extraterrestrials. And I noticed I was even falling into that tendency myself. And I had to kind of wipe it away and be like, wipe my feet, what am I really feeling here? Here's extraterrestrials. And they've got different approaches and different personality characteristics. And I'm not a demonic apologist at all. Like, some of them are pure evil. There's beings that use technology and there's beings that don't use technology. But I think that it is erroneous to ascribe to certain people the qualities that we call angels. Like, oh, they're perfect, they're infallible, they're, non-interactive. Like, oh, we just look down on you from heaven while you're suffering. We don't actually do anything to help you.
Yeah.
I don't know what's actually going on. So I think we need to get that cultural presumption. If you feed an extraterrestrial, you're going to be like, oh, are you an angel or a demon? The answer is neither one. There's more layers of complexity there.
It's always something different than black or white. I mean, that the black or white mindset is a useful tool. Okay, it's a useful tool to establish polarities, but you can't sit in the polarity. Like, you got to let the thing start bouncing back and forth and find that sliding scale, and then you have a more accurate representation of where that person's at. Because they're not stuck anywhere anyway. Maybe they're horrible today. Like, they had a bad day, they're rude or whatever. Fix it, say sorry. They're a different person the next day. Why do you need to, like, have a mental set perception of anybody?
That contrast is even based in, like, the way we see, like, on the screen where you're sitting, there's a contrast between where your shoulders are and then the darker background behind you. So we perceive visually and we can say, oh, look, there's a person there because I see there's contrast between you and your background. Right. So everyone says, well, if there's no contrast, then how can I determine if something exists? So we have to get rid of that, wipe the mud off your feet, because, there is a way to perceive, not merely out of duality and contrast. We can perceive through, like, the gradation of colors. Like, oh, there's a red thing here and a green thing here, and I can perceive that they both exist. And I think one of the big rectifications in humanity meeting extraterrestrials humans have a tendency to think very low, have a low estimation of themselves. And they're more like, you're a beautiful, perfect space angel, and I'm going to worship you or look up to you, and you're perfected. And it's like, no, I think humans need to recognize we are totally awesome. We are even better than, some space angels. And that, we're in this very difficult situation. You have to be very badass to get through what we're getting through down here. But we're not worse than, you're not a worse musician than any of those guys playing in the symphony. Like, you're a good musician.
Just remembering, I think it was kind of an epiphany to me one day when I was thinking about sort of like all of the stories, all the beings and how they interact with each other, even the stuff that's outside of this realm, like even a high commander somewhere, he's literally doing the same thing, like yelling at his wife or whatever, and he's like, I'm planning to, go take care of this planetary situation over here, and then he stubs his toe on the way out. Like, it's all the same everywhere. Like, there's not any situation where it's just whitewashed and clean and, everything happens how it's supposed to. It's not like that.
Oh my God, I think that's a perfect example, because I think the humans who don't think that only intelligent life is humans, once humans start to acknowledge that there's intelligent life elsewhere and that it might even be sophisticated and technologically adept, then they tend to look up to it like, you can fly in a clank metal spaceship, but never imagining, like you're saying, that you might be like fighting with your wife or forget to buy the toilet paper. You have the space toilet paper, now what are we going to do?
Yeah, right.
Use a space coffee filter. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just getting past that negative version of what pure imagination is supposed to be, like this projection overlay, the interferences, all of the memes and invasive thought forms that propagate everywhere on the internet and within the social structures and all of that. And just like you return back into that purity that you can do everything. Like, you're connected with everything, even in the subtlest of feelings that course through your body. One feeling could be connecting you to some star system, and it's giving you a message or something. You're sitting there and ignoring it,
Oh yes, I think
we should be much more interconnected with these far distant star systems.
They literally speak to and through our DNA strings, and that's how it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be here like stranded and isolated from the rest of what is family. Like, I'm not just talking about biological family members on your physical planet and physical body. I'm talking about consciousness family. Like, how there might be some musician that you really love and enjoy their music, and you're not biologically related to them, but you feel a connection to them through their persona and their music and the way they inspired you. That's the same kind of thing. Like, the struggles that we're facing as individuals mirror the struggles that are happening on some other planets. Like, there's a planet where everyone there looks like, a Yorkshire Terrier, but they're fighting for freedom too. And you can feel like solidarity with them, even though they have a different face or they're made out of a methane cloud, whatever it is. And you can say, like, we're all on the same type of journey. We're all, fighting for the same freedom. And I really do think that what we're doing on this planet with our own individual fight for freedom, we interconnect with that collective galaxy-wide. Like, I don't know if I'm letting any cats out of any bags here, but our entire galaxy is effed up. We have problems, not just on this planet, not just in the solar system, but there's profound trauma that is, goes back. So it's so ancient, it's hard to even say how long ago it was. So we have, a huge backlog of healing to accomplish. And it's not just happening on this planet, it's happening on the planet of the Yorkshire Terriers and the planet of the methane people and all these other places. And we're all doing it at the same time. So what people here might think, like, oh, I'm just living my stupid life and I drive my car to my cubicle job and nothing matters, right? Existential crisis. But it's like, no, actually what you're doing here matters. And it might seem like you're just doing mundane tasks, but your personal transformation and where you're going and what you're creating affects everyone here and in many other places too.
Yeah.
Because there's some guy on a methane planet, and he's like, oh, I'm just tending to my gas farm, and nothing makes any sense, and I'm just collecting molecules here.
Right. Yeah, you can connect with everything, and you can connect with all the invisible things too, and you're creating stuff out of nothing anyway. Like, that's how the life works. It's all a dream world creation. Like, it's everything, it's nothing, it's all that stuff at once, and you can grasp it, but you can live it, like, you can be it.
we have reached the culmination of this conversation. It's all a dream world. Like once we really recognize that, because I think the narrative structure of the material world and mundane objective materialism is a fiction. It's a fiction or a distorted, story of reality that we've been given that is not the truth of reality. And when we recognize as individuals and collectively that we're dreamers and we're dreaming reality, or we're painting reality with the paintbrush of our imagination. Let me be clear also, when I say imagination, I don't just mean like when you're a little kid and you imagine things and adults say, oh no, that's just your imagination. Imagine means the capacity to envision something that doesn't exist yet. Like before I paint a painting, I envision it here, and then that is one of the steps to manifesting. So our imagination is like an organ of our body that we use to generate reality.
Yeah.
And the more rich your imagination is, like it's a very big deal to be able to imagine something new and innovative. That's not a small thing. That's a magical activity that I don't think is given enough credit in this, whatever capitalistic society. You get more of a pat on the back if you earn a bunch of money than if you write a new song, even though writing a new song is literally a magical activity. But people will say, like, that's just a self-indulgent, stupid hobby, and you should go out and get a job and earn some money, right? But it's like, I need to sit here and perform a magical activity, and that is what my true purpose is.
Yeah. I think we are needing to wrap up soon because my phone
is... That's cool. We culminated. We
the
got
tether,
to...
yeah.
It's a dream. For many years, I couldn't understand, like, am I in a heavenly world? Am I in a hellish world? Is it a real world? Is it a fake world? What's going on with the rules here? And at a certain point, I just figured out, okay, it is a dream. In a dream world, in a mind-created reality. So if it's a dream, we can make it a good dream. It does not have to be nightmare.
Right.
Do that through our own imagining and through helping other people.
And there are truly no rules. There are sort of logical arrangements, but there are no rules. You don't ever have to accept somebody's belief system in whatever form it comes in. Don't accept the horse shit. Like, make your life, do your thing. Go out there and do something.
And one more adjoinder to that there's no rules is that we have to take responsibility for our creations.
Yes.
You might be like, there's no rules. Honey, grab my machine gun and do all the murder spree. I hope I'm not ruining your video by saying that, because then the algorithm will be like, oh, they're murderers. Don't
No, I think it'll be fine. There are no rules once you have become a responsible child, right? Do that first, take responsibility, and then there are no rules.
That's right, because you can't just go rampantly killing people with machine guns.
No, we don't like that. Okay, so let me see here. I'm just going to do that.